Welcome to the Time of the Reason podcast show. We're not looking for ratings. We are not here to support and to create sensationalism. We are not here to entertain. We are here to give due diligence to the pressing human, economic, environmental, political, and social issues that affect humankind. We are here to promote thinking. Now, more than ever, is the time to revive reason. Unless we do so, humankind is riding a one-way runaway train into oblivion. Think about it. We must think. Thank you for listening again to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast show. Let's get started. Hey, Dan.
Hey, John.
Welcome back to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast. We're here this morning with a subject that is like, especially for sports fans, all over the internet now. Everybody by now that's a college football fan or even a fan of sports in general is talking about this. And it's the college football playoff selection committee's recent selection of the best four teams in America and leaving out Florida State University, which went 13-0 with three different quarterbacks, right? They chose Michigan, undefeated, 13-0. They chose Washington State, kudos to them, 13-0. They chose Alabama at 12-1, and they chose Texas 12-1 that hadn't been ahead of Florida State for most of the year. Florida State, of course, won their conference championship with the third-string quarterback and a defense that just shut down their opponent. I mean, my gosh. Anyhow, it's really got people up in arms, and they're wondering, the famous Vince Lombardi, if winning doesn't mean anything, this is the quote, then why do they keep score? And another Vince Lombardi quote, winning isn't everything. It is everything. I can't think of it right now. We're so like discombobulated. All the fans that love football, Alabama, kudos to them. Great coach, great program. But come on, they were tied at halftime with, I think, USF. And then they lost at home to Texas. Great win for the Longhorns. We got some Longhorn friends. And then they had to throw a Hail Mary pass against a 6-6 Auburn team. By the way, with their starting quarterback, I like the last play of the game to secure the championship for the SEC. And then they won by less than double digits against Texas. Okay. So we have those four teams that I mentioned. And then one team, the Florida State Seminoles, that went 13-0. Like I just mentioned, three different quarterbacks. And they get left out, shut out. Like the message they're sending to the college football world and to the kids out there that are getting ready to be recruited by college teams is that winning doesn't mean anything. And so it doesn't matter what college you go to. Well, it does if you go to an elite program, that you'll still get in. You may be able to lose two games and get in.
I thought ACC was well represented, John. What it's a respected league.
9 teams are going to bowls. The ACC has more bowl teams in this year's college football season than any other league out there, conference. And as a matter of fact, right, you mentioned that. I know you're a Michigan man, but Michigan State, I just lost my train of thought, but the ACC beat the out-of-conference SEC games this year. I think it was 6 victories to 4 losses. So I just find it interesting that in the last 10 years, 4 teams have won the national championship with second-string quarterbacks. So I'm calling the CFP out on it. We're going to say, you're all full of it. We don't know what went into that decision, but it certainly wasn't because it was a second-string quarterback. What does that mean? All the other players on the team mean nothing? Alabama lost in the regular season. Texas lost in the regular season. FSU deserves to be there. And then everybody, they're just crying and this and that. We need to crank up the official permanent transfer portal. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, Dan, is this the downfall of college football and sport? Why not give all Olympians who show up a gold medal? Or if you fall down on the ice and even though you lost a few points, you had good style points, so you're still going to get the gold medal. What is going on here?
Well, maybe they should just give the gold medal without even playing the games, because those games are so dangerous, you know.
Just tell me, in your opinion, what's this all about?
John, you say I was Michigan man. I went to a year of graduate school at Michigan. That's the extent. Michigan State, I spent about 8 years at Michigan State. Took me a while to get out of there, but when I finally did, I did well.
Well, good for you.
But I know one thing, and that is Big Ten is always overrated. Always. Michigan and Ohio State would be just 9 times out of 10 will get stomped by an SEC team, by a Georgia or an Alabama, or heavens, an Auburn. I mean, those guys came alive. That was awesome. But
yeah.
Georgia, who's not been in the top, they were in top place all year long.
All year long. And they dropped it. They dropped the number 6.
And it dropped to number 6. I think, John, what you're calling for is need to let 4 more teams in, need to have 18 playoff. And then it won't be so controversial.
Well, they're going to that next year. They're going to the 12-team playoff system.
12 teams. Huh?
12 teams, which is going to open it up to even more speculation on who really deserves to be there or not. Yeah, it's just gotten insane. And that right there, to me, you can slice it any way you want, Kirk Hype Street. You know, you were a great quarterback, but you can slice it and dice it any way you want. But Florida State Seminoles deserves to be in the top 4 this year. I can't even believe the lack of cojones by a lot of people in this industry. There's some coaches that have spoken out, but I mean, come on, Coach Saban. You know in your heart of hearts that you lost a game, and even though you beat Georgia by less than a touchdown, I think, in the championship game, you know Florida State deserves to be in your position. You know that. And Texas, God bless you, man. You guys, Longhorns, what a tradition. But you still lost. You lost one of those positions Florida State needed to have. So, I don't know. I'm just sick to myself. And I know my dad, who played at the University of Miami, is just rolling over in his grave because he taught us as young men coming up. And he loved football, that it's anybody can beat anybody on any given day, which the quarterback for Florida State just proved, and beat a good Louisville team ranked in the top 15, who was running roughshod over a lot of people, beat the snot out of Notre Dame this year. They weren't any slouch team, but FSU's phenomenal defense shut them down. So I don't know, man. Too many smoke and mirrors. CFP, it's gotten too political. It's gotten too greedy. The networks are all patting each other's pockets. You know, I don't have proof of that, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. The ratings. And then they tried to say somehow it was the TCU factor was part of it. TCU ruined it for FSU because they got in last year and they got smoked by Georgia. But think about that. TCU won their first game. So, no, TCU did not cost FSU spot in this year's playoff. It was something deeper than that.
Well, college football is changing, John, big time. And with this permanent transfer portal, it's just a pro draft. Is all it amounts to.
Yeah, what I'm thinking that this, yeah, I mean that's what it is. It's all about the money. We get it. Now they want to, and it should be. People should be rewarded financially for the things that they do, especially if it makes money for the advertisers and for stuff like that. But the reality is, I can think of some people to put, like W.E. Greedy, number 1. He could be put in the permanent transfer portal, or we could put the player I Am Biased. He could be put in that transfer portal, or who's that other guy? Anyhow, there's so many names we could come up with, but we need to do something as fans to send a message that come on, man, you're ruining the sport that millions of people love. I don't know. The 12 game thing may be a solution, but then again, then you get into real politics. P.O. Latix, he needs to be put in the permanent transfer portal too. What the solution is, I believe, is to do the right thing. And we're living in a world now. Maybe I'm digressing, but we're living in a world now where doing the right thing gets penalized. Throw the red flag, 15 yards, you did the right thing. And doing the wrong thing gets rewarded. That's what this is really about.
Well, I don't know, John. I think probably what has happened is the Democrats gotten involved.
Could be.
Because it sounds like it. Things just don't make any sense anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. Doesn't it seem that way, though, these days? And without diving too deep, some of the subjects we've talked about, that there always seems to be this leftist progressive specter hanging over something that's a traditional American, whether it's a holiday or a belief. There's always something hanging over it. Not to go too far that way, but yeah, there might be something to that. Maybe we need to follow the money and see if the DNC is somehow connected to that.
Yeah.
The CFP selection committee. Something's not right. And we're not that stupid. Maybe we are.
I can get a couple of guys to break in to the DNC and see if we can find any information.
Well, those are related to other people we know. But you know what? But we joke and we smoke and we kid about it. But we want listeners, especially with the conversations you and I have had, Dan, we want people to think. The scientific method is still around if you use it. Put your critical thinking skull cap on. Use some logic and reason. The college football game is a team sport. Florida State just proved that you can win high-level games, rivals, and championships with a second and third string quarterback. So don't for 1 second think that I'm ever going to believe that the mitigating factor was that Jordan Travis was hurt. Like it was his fault. But what happened? What happened, committee? They picked up what they had left, which was a bunch of other players, and the coaching staff, kudos to them, put together a game plan that secured a victory in the final 2 games of the season. That is phenomenal. So the best teams aren't there. And I can only hope that we get a really incredible game between FSU and Georgia. And one of them wins. And somebody will win. And then that's the real best team.
Time. Yeah. Wins big time.
Wins big time. Watches Michigan get beat by Alabama, who doesn't really belong there. And maybe Washington gets upset by a really good Texas Longhorn. Then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Then you're going to have 6 teams that are 13-1. Then what are you going to do? Then who's the best team? Then do we revert back to just give everybody a trophy just because they were there? Gosh, it's just insane, man, what's going on in America.
Yeah, this is an example of equity.
Yes, it is. I don't know. We can wallow in the mire all we want. It's going to be debated from now until the cows come home. I heard an argument the other day. Well, remember when FSU got beat by Notre Dame? FSU was number 1 and Notre Dame beat them. I think it was like 1993. And FSU went on to win the championship. How do you think Notre Dame felt? Well, the guy that was saying this, did he forget that the following week Notre Dame was beat on their home field by a Boston College team that wasn't even ranked? FSU went on to smoke the rest of their opponents. Of course, and by the way, lost on Notre Dame's field by less than a touchdown. FSU was the better team that year, and they managed to put together a game plan. Lou Holtz, I think, was the coach, but they managed to put together the game plan that secured a victory, and kudos to them. And what did it do? It flip-flopped. But what did they do? They went out the next week, their head inflated like they were this and all that, and Boston College, which is a very tough ACC team, came into Notre Dame Field, Jesus Incorporated, and smoked them with a field goal in the final second of the play. They lost to an unranked team. But anyhow, we could go on and debate game after game after game. But the tradition and the way things have always been done is you reward people for the results on the field. And FSU got screwed.
Yep. You're seeing an example of socialism.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Again, how socialism and progressivism and all this stuff, leftist ideology, is always creeping into something that's logical and reasonable. And every time you put that little bit of saltpeter in there, it goes limp. That's what's going on. This is just another extension of American traditions getting subverted by the powers that be to destroy what America is all about, which is freedom and individualism and rights and the ability. We can talk to each other and find common ground.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, it's gotten really crazy. So what's the solution, Dan, besides all out revolution? What's the solution?
Well, they've got a perfect solution. The committee, they never have to, next year will be an improvement over the situation they found themselves in this year. But I'm afraid that this year, it's pretty tough to explain Alabama or Texas with a loss. And it's hard to explain Georgia not being there as being on top all year long.
Why isn't it Georgia and FSU in there?
Yeah. So, but next year they can save themselves, but they'll screw that up too.
I would love to see FSU play Michigan and Georgia play Washington, and then we get the game. We get the game we deserve anyways for the national championship. And I believe that game, whoever wins that anyways, is the true national champion.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I don't know. Just a bad situation, John. I'd hate to be a Florida State fan.
I know. Well, you know where my heart lies.
Of course.
I have to have a disclaimer here. I am an FSU graduate. So here I am at the end of the show revealing that. But if you know me, you already know already. I don't bleed garnet and gold because I do bleed garnet and gold, but I was raised in a Miami Hurricane household. And my brother and I both chose to go to FSU, and it caused a big stink in the family. And because my mom came over to her two boys, and my dad was always on his own. But he got back at us for all those wide rights and wide left. And, Miami had some phenomenal teams where we were really active in the sport. But
yeah, they did. Yeah.
All I can say is, congratulations to the Florida State Seminoles for a phenomenal season. You brought some hope back to us who thought that FSU had hit the skids and we were going to be there for a while. So kudos to Mike Norvell and all of his coaching staff. Kudos to Kirby Smart, who was about ready to make history with the third year in a row, Georgia maybe is a possible national championship. That's phenomenal coaching. Yeah. What these coaches do year in and year out is awesome. Kudos to the other
and it's very competitive, of course. And this portal thing is, they opened Pandora's box when they said that athletes can earn money from their image. All they've done is created a mini pro league. So, a lot has gone, and I'm afraid a lot of the sportsmanship and team loyalty, I think that's going to suffer.
And
they'd had a good quarterback, but a lousy team, so their quarterback ends up at Auburn. So the only good player that Michigan State had ends up going somewhere else, going to
I
the.
know. Oh, we got one of those. Keon Coleman, who's a phenomenal receiver, came from Michigan State. And what an addition that guy made to the team. But, the final accolade I'm going to send out to the CFP selection committee. And I'm just going to say, thank you for giving your due diligence and for doing your part in destroying an American tradition, college football, that is so close and near and dear to the hearts of millions of fans. You don't deserve the position you're in because you have destroyed the hard work, the concept of teamwork, and what winning is all about. Thank you. I hope you can sleep at night. I'm riled up. And thank you, Dan, for being my co-host and putting up with my digressions at time. And thank you to the listeners and the viewers who spend their time out of their important day to listen to the Time of the Reason podcast show. Any closing remarks, Dan?
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I'm with you. I support you.
Thank you, sir. Go Noles.
Go Noles.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast show. Now it's time to think. Logic and reason work. It's only common sense. Do your part.